Good morning, St. Francis. Good morning, people of God. It is Wednesday, the 21st day of August, 2024, Wednesday of the 20th week of the year, the 20th week in Ordinary Time. Today, we also honor the memory of St. Pius X, Pope. Again, Pius X, Pope at the beginning of the 20th century. His great claim to fame was that he lowered the age of reception for communion, encouraging more and more people to receive, which was a very good thing because, again, not only were people not receiving, because again they had been told by previous popes that they were no good and that they should not receive because they were unworthy or unwashed or whatever it is. It was also done sometimes like around 6th grade today in the United States, or 7th grade. It was always given later in life, and because again you did have to know what you were receiving. But Pius dares to move forward by suggesting that even a child in 2nd grade, so what would that be, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds would know that, again, what it is that they are receiving. Sometimes we reduce this, the difference between bread and Eucharistic bread, which is really not a good analogy because that gets a little too complicated and supernatural, and no child is going to be able to understand that, let alone an adult. So we have these we have this sort of interesting situation. But the glory is that, again, as in the Eastern Church, where individuals are baptized, confirmed, and given Eucharist, basically a drop of the wine, on their tiny little tongues as infants. So too Pius X was sort of waking up to the fact that we don't necessarily need to have full adulthood to move into the beginnings of the understanding of faith. It doesn't mean that they fully understand the faith, and that sometimes adults don't fully understand the faith either, but that the process doesn't have to be delayed and delayed and delayed. We still have that issue with confirmation, but we won't go into that thing for right now. But Pius does this. He also was a little bit daring in trying to open up the celebration of the Eucharistic liturgy to the vernacular, and so in different parts he was kind of permitting in different places, parts of the Mass to be celebrated in the language of the people rather than just in Latin. So he kind of begins to further a process that was begun in the 1800s, in the 19th century, among different monasteries, suggesting that, without liturgy in the language of the people, what liturgy says is going to be not understood at all, and unintelligible. And so this is, again, another good thing that Pius did. Not liked by some. A lot of problems too we have with him, but there's a couple of good things that we can remember him by, and so therefore he's a saint. Let's see. But our readings for today, there are special readings for him as always for all the saints, but especially our readings for today continue with Ezekiel. This is Ezekiel chapter 34, the great tirade against the shepherds. Who are these shepherds that Ezekiel is, that God is yelling at through Ezekiel? They are the leaders of the people of Jerusalem. And basically their many misdeeds and how they have failed the people, are listed, through the mouth of Ezekiel, with God's anger at them. And basically what it does is that by chapter 34, Israel is the remnant of Judah, the kingdom of Judah, are now in exile in Babylon. And this is to tell the people, the Israelites in Babylon, it is not your fault. It is your leaders' fault because they led you astray and they did not follow my commandments and therefore did not ask you to follow the commandments. So it is in many ways, again, this citing of blame and this laying of blame, at the foot again of those who lead. Even within our church today, we have to be careful how we lead and who we lead, again, and where we lead, because it isn't an easy task, to take on, and we must make sure that is the interests, of the people always, that make things work, that make things prosper, that makes the faith possible, within our midst. Without good leadership, there can never be, a faith that makes sense to us, a faith that helps us to understand ourselves and our relationship with God. And basically, God recognizes the failure of that in Jerusalem, and lays the blame at their feet. The thing also that God does, though, is basically tell the Israelites that God will take care of them, that they are not going to be left orphaned and abandoned, but that God will come in and God will be their leader and God will be the one to direct their lives, which is what God wanted at the beginning before the people clamored for kings and wanting to have some kind of human leadership. So God wants to bring it back again in exile to the centrality of God's leadership in the lives of the people. In Matthew's Gospel today, Again, it's about, again, a parable is given to us. The parable about a landowner who goes out and hires workers, and at the end of the day pays everybody the same wage, regardless of the time in which they were hired. And again, those who were hired first, thinking they were going to get more money, are, angered about it. And basically, Jesus says, why are you angry at my generosity? You agreed to this wage, and you are receiving it. Be happy with what you received. But again, we as human beings become selfish and self-centered and egotistical, and all those kinds of things like this. What's in it for me? Whiffums, we call them. What's in it for me? We try to get what we can, and making sure that we have this sense of justice, which really is quite small-minded and really not as researched or not as thought out as we think that it is. Our own puny senses of justice can never match God's sense of justice, and the fact that all people benefit should give us happiness and should make our lives, filled with, again, the wonder and the glory of who and what God is in our midst. A blessed day, St. Francis and people of God. May the Lord give you his peace.